Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thank you for joining us today in this webinar where we discuss the AI versus the product owner. Is AI a threat or is it actually helpful? Joining me today is Gino.
Hi, my name is Gino Shahidi. I work as a product management consultant and trainer at Xebia. I'm one of 5 CSTs in the Netherlands, certified Scrum trainers, and glad to be here with you.
Excellent. My name is Rutger de Wijs. I'm a consultant at Xebia as well. I usually do interim product management or some kind of product management related role, coaching, stuff like this. But I also am a trainer now for a training that I created myself about AI and the product manager. And I do this from some experience in the past with working with business intelligence and analytics. And that always made me curious for the subject. So happy to be here. Really nice.
Thank you, gentlemen, for introducing yourself. This gives me a whole lot more confidence that I am the dumbest person in the room by now because I don't know anything of AI. So I'm looking forward to learning from you guys as well. My name is Sander Deur and I will be your host for today, supported by these 2 awesome gentlemen. Let's have a look at the program for this 1-hour workshop webinar. What are we going to discuss? Well, we have the introduction that we're talking through now, and then we're going to look into how can AI augment us as a professional, going into how can AI augment our products, and then we'll have a panel discussion, and ultimately you can join us in asking us questions or asking these gentlemen questions. So, what are we talking about again? Sundar? Take it on.
AI, generative AI, AI as AI. It uses AI to bring AI.
All right.
Couldn't
have said it better, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much for clearing this up. That helps a lot. AI is one of the biggest buzzwords the last couple of years, but especially this year. These graphs show you exactly why. In just the last 2 years, the mentions in tech giants' earnings have tripled. That's just in 2 years. And that's no surprise why, because ChatGPT, from the first version on, is the fastest one, ramping up to 100 million active users in just 2 months. That's faster than WeChat, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. And that's not going to stop anytime soon. If you look at this graph, and we'll make sure that we'll send out these slides afterwards so you can dive into this. We realize there's a lot of text in this, but what you see here is that everything is ramping up really quickly. AI is more important than even the invention of the internet itself. So a lot of future technology is going to be dependent on AI. The next slide shows this exactly as well. On the left side and on the bottom side, you see a lot of different forms of technology. And what you see with the black boxes in the middle is that everything is supported at its core by AI. So we cannot live without it anymore. Everything in the future will almost be completely dependent, or at least partially dependent, on AI. AI is going so fast that it's even outperforming the forecast or out forecasting itself than what experts, maybe you guys even, had forecasted. I realize by now that we can cut our own AI clip like Sundar in a minute as well.
Yeah.
We've been mentioning AI so often already.
Just to help it along.
Exactly.
We're talking about AI, with AI,
Yep.
supported by AI.
Yeah, exactly. What you see here, and this is just an example of how fast the whole development has been going. On the left side, we see one of the first pictures that has been created by generative AI 8 years ago of a herd of animals. It's pixely. This is almost like what Minecraft looks like today. And on the right side, you see almost inseparable from real life, from actual pictures. This is created instantaneously with a generative AI tool as well. So you see that the development of these tools is incredibly fast. So how can we leverage that? If we would open up a Data Science Times newspaper as of today, what we would see is that 79% of organizations see data as an essential part of their strategy. Many data executives, on the other hand, struggle with achieving these measurable results from their data. And data could be anything related to science and their investments. The biggest challenge in any organization's analytics journey is turning these insights from data into valuable outcomes. Data itself doesn't provide any value, right? Metrics don't really add value. It's how we can interpret those and use those to bring lessons and bring the discussion. What can we learn from this? What can we do with this data? And that's what we're struggling with. Now, our advice would be in this sense is to unlock value from data by embedding these analytics into the product-related decision-making process. And we cannot do that or let AI discuss that themselves. We need someone for that. Who could that be? Product owners, product managers, product professionals, and that's exactly what Gina is going to be discussing in a minute. We need these product managers and to become decision makers based on the data and information that will be provided by these tools. So, as mentioned, 2 talks by these experts here. First thing is we're going to dive into how AI can support us as a professional, and then followed by Rutger is talking about how AI can support us in our product development. Gino, on to you.
Right, perfect. Thank you for this introduction, Sander. So I'd like to start my talk about how we can boost our superpowers as product managers by using generative AI to work smarter, faster, and more efficiently, effectively as product professionals. But to get us started, let's go back to the core of a job of a product professional, product manager, product owner, and so on. So you see that you will be managing many different hats at the same time, so to speak. So as a product manager, you're managing your product vision and product strategy, the implementation and creation part of that. You need to be able to understand the product needs and requirements part of your product by understanding the market, by understanding your stakeholders. You need to be part of the ideation process and the discovery process of your product, but also the development and delivery of your product as well. The whole launch and release management of your product, creating or ensuring that we have feedback loops, so you're continuously using those feedback loops to understand how your product is performing and use that to do the micro improvements about your product to grow your product, but also using the metrics as well and the product economics part of your product as well to understand which improvements are there to be done. Now, of course, many more aspects of different parts of your product is part of the job of a product manager. And we do all of this to make sure we are maximizing value that your product or service is creating for both your users and your organization as a whole. Also, we see that a lot of organizations these days are connecting a product manager, product owner to multiple teams, which brings also a lot of additional complexity to the job of a product manager. So basically, if you see the list of things you do as a product manager, but also the increasing complexity that the world is bringing to the job of a product manager, it's a quite demanding job. I would say. Thinking about that demanding job, wouldn't be really nice to have a special assistant who could assist you in doing this complex job. By the way, the picture that you see is, of course, generated by Gen AI, and I gave the prompt of create an assistant combining Einstein and Sherlock Holmes, and this is what you get out of it. So if you're curious, then now you know. But going back in time, 1 year ago or a little bit more, I think we all can remember the first time we got our first interaction with these generative AI tools. And for me, it was ChatGPT. And I think it was really a magical moment for me, because I immediately realized and knew that this would change the world of work as we know it. And of course, for me, it was more interesting to know how it would change the world of product management because of my interest. So basically, I started a journey of learning and discovery and experimenting to better understand the possibilities that Gen AI could offer to us as product managers, and but also how I can use that as a trainer and coach to bring it to my students. I started experimenting myself with the tools. I tried many different tools. I talked to many different experts, including my own colleagues, such as Rutger, but also other colleagues at Xebia who are real experts in this field. And I also joined different training classes myself, which with the highlight being a training that I followed at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in US, which was really insightful. I think in conclusion, if I bring all of that information together, I realized that there are basically two ways of looking these advancements of AI. At the one end of the spectrum, you could say, okay, you could be either very scared of the change and very frightened and trying to hold back and not be part of it or deny it. And the other end of the spectrum is embracing it, embracing the possibilities and see how it can be used in our benefit, in our case, as product managers. And personally, I like to say that I'm more to the right side of this spectrum. So realizing that, I thought, okay, this also changes my mission as an individual that I have in life, as in a professional life at least. So my mission had always been as a product professional, as a trainer, as a coach, is to help other professionals to learn the skills to become experienced product managers. That was original mission. And the realization that I had based on the journey that I just described is that I need to add something to this, which is to help product managers to work smarter, faster, and more efficiently using generative AI. And I like to share some of the outcomes of this journey with you, just brief examples. Also, at the end of this session, I'll give you an example of a training that I have developed specifically for as part of this mission. But just to bring you along with some practical examples. As I said in one of the first slides, one of the jobs of a product manager is to create a product vision. And for those of us who has been part of that creation cycle, it takes a lot of effort to get even to the first stage of your first version, which you need to validate. And I learned that basically using Gen AI, that process can be hugely the speed of it can be improved a lot. I'm going to show you an example in this case. This is an example of the prompt that I try to put in Gen AI. Basically, I explained that act as a senior product manager to set the scene, and then help me to create a one-paragraph elevator pitch for this product, and then my product idea, an e-commerce platform for travel agencies. And I added a target audience of small to medium travel agencies up to 20 employees. And the results of it was actually pretty good. I'm not going to read it, but you see that it generated an elevator pitch, which is concise. It has a name. Of course, you can tweak it. It has a reason of existence. It sums up the benefits, and it also explains why people should care about this. So already a very good first version. By no means this is a complete vision, but this is a good starting point with some tweaks to have to start the conversation with your stakeholders and with your team and start your experimentation. As a bonus, because there is not one way of creating a product vision, I have some additional templates we can use. So here are some bonus additions. So, for example, we might be able to choose to use a value proposition statement from Jeffrey Moore, or product vision board from Roman Pichler, or golden circle from Simon Sinek, to further optimize our product vision. So I used the first one from Jeffrey Moore, and GenAI, of course, knows the templates, and this is the result then. You see that it uses the previously generated vision and uses the template to create a concise way of communicating our vision in a way that people can actually understand and follow. Again, just a simple example. Usually this would take at least half a day to complete, but now it just took like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to complete. And that is a huge speeding up of our process.
And actually, Gino, if we looked at earlier how you actually formulated the question, this, I think, is then the outcome of you doing some prompt engineering, right? Exactly.
This is an example of the prompt engineering work that I have been doing, and further optimizing with other product professionals. I have more examples that I can share with you if you're interested. I'll have a link for that as well.
Yeah. Do you remember the first ever prompt that you put into ChatGPT?
Wow, I don't remember actually.
What about you, Rutger?
Please describe how awesome I am. And it actually crashed the system, so that was didn't work out.
System overload.
In the previous webinar that we did, I learned that apparently it takes half a liter bottle for every prompt that you put into ChatGPT, and I can imagine with a prompt like that, you would need an entire ocean to actually compute that.
All right. Moving on. All right. So the next example that I want to show is product backlog management, because as product owners, product managers, one of our main skills and capabilities should be how to manage a product backlog effectively. And in no way I want to say that this is the only way of managing your backlog effectively, but in this example, I've chosen the user story template to be implemented in my backlog, if you choose to do it. Basically, you had your ideation session with your stakeholders. You've written some keywords that you want to use to create user stories for your backlog. Here are some examples that I have. So 3 examples: receive updates when bookings are received, send confirmation, and create weekly report. And by just inputting that together with the vision that was already inserted in the previous step, you see that it creates a fairly usable set of user stories that you could use. Of course, it might need some additional tweaking, but it's already a very good starting point. Just imagine if you have 40 of these things, you put it in 40 of these ideas after ideation session, you put it in GenAI, and in a couple of seconds you have a good list of user stories to further optimize. To finish my part of the talk, I have created an infographic with, in my view, the top GenAI prompts specifically for product managers in 8 different areas, 8 different use cases with some examples. So if you're interested in receiving this infographic, either send me an email, which you can see here, or scan the QR code, or find me on LinkedIn. I'll make sure that you will get this infographic, of course, free. To summarize, I think using GenAI, we as product managers can make our work more easier, faster, and work more effectively by embracing the tool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rutger.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. So now we'll zoom into the other side of AI, which is to actually improve the products that you as a product owner or as a manager are responsible for, or even accountable, right? So, and I'll provide you with some insights because the story is pretty big. But, well, what we learned, Sundar explained it perfectly. It's really important. Okay, now we know. But what does AI actually mean? Well, let me give you a bit of an insight into this. So what you see here is a table that you should read from bottom to the top and from left to right, which shows the process of going from data on the one hand to value on the other side, and you can do this across 3 different levels of the analytics disciplines. You have a basic layer which is about reporting. You have a middle layer which is more about figuring out why did stuff happen. We call this analytics. And then the top part is about data science, and this is more about looking into the future or creating decision support and even automated data products that can get you to value faster without the human decisioning and input needed to get to actions. So when we speak about AI, artificial intelligence, then this is at the top layer of this overview. It lives in the data science space, and it has to do with machine intelligence automation. And if we zoom a little further, we actually, the whole space of AI is actually a scientific field, which is focused on doing research and figuring out ways to make machines solve problems creatively like humans do. And then within this, you have something called machine learning, which is about giving computers the ability to actually learn by themselves without having been programmed to do this, right? They figure it out themselves. Within this, inspired by the human brain and how it works with the different nodes and the synapses, a subset of machine learning that is designed like brains, although not exactly, but just inspired by, let's say, is called artificial neural networks. And if you can see in this picture, you have like 5 little circles, and they are grouped into 3 layers: the input, the middle, and the output. If we are talking about 3 layers or less, it's just regular neural networks. But when we speak about more than 3, then we talk about deep learning, because the learning happens more deeply into the algorithm. And then, as you can see with the dates, artificial intelligence started already in the 40s. In the 50s and 60s, we had some advancements with machine learning and neural networks. And then in the 2000s, we figured out, hey, also with the computer systems being able to compute faster, to just add more layers. But the real revolution came in 2017 when researchers from Google published a paper that describes transformers. Well, not the ones you see on TV normally, but actually a neural network that is designed in a way where it can actually process all kinds of information in parallel. And this is really a revolution in this space, and lies the foundation for language models, large language models like ChatGPT. And so, yeah, this is basically how to look at AI, to give you some structure.
Speaking of LLM, large language models, Yannick has a question. The fact remains that large language models and/or generative AI can have hallucinations. Can you currently trust the advice you receive enough to do product management? Or is it actually better than whatever metrics, etc., that you use currently?
Okay, interesting.
Interesting question.
Yeah. So I would say this is like when you are a person that wants to drive a car. It really helps if you have a driving license and you know how to drive a car in order to then use it. And so in this case, it would be really good to understand the limits of AI and the strengths that it can give you, and how to use it and how to interpret the data, and also use different kinds of services that also provide sources so that you can double check if you are in doubt or just want to make sure, right? So there are some ways, but that is more like the driver's license side of things. I think that it's very powerful, very useful, but you need to know how to use it and be careful.
So you would never just blindly trust whatever?
No, for sure, no. There are many examples now of that you should not do this. One famous one that I can just think of is a lawyer that used ChatGPT or some LLM for during trial to actually talk about the case, and it turned out that he used examples of case law in the past that would prove him right, but those were actually made up. So then he lost his license. So dangerous things.
Trust but verify.
Yes, absolutely.
Yannick, hopefully that answers your question. If not, let us know.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
But let's continue still. So it's very powerful, right? And there are many use cases. And what I listed here is because also we're limited in time. So just a number of industries or sectors in the top, and then below it 2 examples. But there are many more per industry. And for instance, just to highlight a couple, fraud detection is a very common one in the finance industry, banking, but also for payments, which ties into retail, for instance, where in real time, when a payment needs to happen, the reliability of the people or the payment methods or the cards involved are checked, and this is then also correlated with all kinds of expected behaviors, and then you get a credit score or a fraud-related risk score, and then behavior can change. So, for instance, I know that at some e-commerce platforms, they actually do this check real time in the checkout, and when they do so, they adjust the payment options that you get in your UI. So maybe if you are really a trusted customer and the system knows this, then it will give you the option to pay after delivery. But if you're in the risk or unknown, then they won't, right? So this is an example of how it's used. And another way is, for instance, for utilities to forecast the consumption of energy. And of course, they would use weather-related information, but also maybe events or locations and things like this. So you can use it for all kinds of ways, and I'm actually interested in maybe with the audience. Do you know of some examples how in your company or in your industry, what are some nice examples of how AI is being used in products? Let me see that in the Q&A.
Yeah.
So data science, like I said before, is actually where AI lives, and that is at the intersection of IT, science, and business knowledge. And to do that properly, you need all kinds of capabilities. Of course, mathematics, statistics, scientific method, but also computing, engineering, visualization skills, but also really importantly, like subject matter expertise and this business goal mindset. And you guessed it, one person to do all of this is just not possible. Maybe in a really small startup you would have one person that does it all, but you would need a team to really power this up. And so you would need a team that consists of a data scientist for more that science side, data engineer for more the data side, a data storyteller, which is quite a new role, but it becomes more and more important to actually take your stakeholders along with the findings that you had, and that is a really an important role. And of course, a PO of the team itself to make sure that they are prioritizing their work properly. And so when they do their work, they use a bunch of steps. I created this model, but that's a whole different story. But basically they take a couple steps. They first discover what is the problem that they need to solve, then look at the data and deal with the data in some way, clean it, prep it, all kinds of stuff. Then experiment, which kind of algorithm should be used, which one yields the best results, how robust is this, what risks are there with using this. And then once it's figured out, you scale it and you maintain it, right? And at the core is really three important things. AI ethics, which is a whole topic on its own, but just imagine, right? You have all of this data from people. You need to be very careful on how to use it, how to store it, how to behave with it. Then the other one is product team guidance. Well, I'll make sure you will understand why in a second. And then ML ops, just like DevOps, also for dealing with all these algorithms and models, you need some structure around that. So that's the ML ops side within this. Altogether, that is the way how those data science teams work. And when they work, they produce the cool stuff. Well, cool if you're a nerd, I guess, but I find it cool. So I'm a nerd, I guess.
Your words, not mine.
like those automated data products, decision support, predictive analytics, right? So, but that is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of effort for such a team. They actually need to spend a lot of time wrangling with the data, cleaning it, or even obtaining it, cleaning it, fixing, tweaking it. That is a lot of work. And but it gets worse or better depending on the perspective, because even more effort is then required to make that technical AI stuff part of a successful product, right? Having a successful implementation, integrating it properly, launching it properly, iterating based on feedback properly, that all still has to happen. So obviously the data science team is for the top part, but you guessed it, product managers, product owners, this is your world to make it a success. And it's at the base of this pyramid, which means that you need to provide solid support for the data science stuff to be stable on top of it. And you have your ways to do this. One way to look at it is through this value circle for product management, right? You start with the vision, you ideate, we go from counterclockwise, by the way, and you prioritize stuff, you put it into your sprints, and then release products, right? And you learn from it and you iterate further. And then, of course, the data science lifecycle framework on the other side. And although they are both circles, they are very different in how they work. And the key person in the middle there would be you as the product manager or product owner. And in order to create amazing products, you need to pool those AI solutions into your product. And the way to do this is by taking the initiative and by orchestrating the collaboration. And by basically, instead of having the data science team push their work into the organization, which doesn't really work, you want to create a pull effect from your side, be the driver in this, and really pull that work into the whole value circle, which starts at the ideation. So do that together with the data science team.
How does data security how does that get involved in these two circles?
Yeah, so data security, I think that relates to the core of dealing with the data. That might actually relate to the AI ethics part, which talks about stuff like how do you store the data? Is it secure? Is it safe? But also, is it stored in the duration that is aligned with what the consumer said that it is okay? Is it also removed when people say, hey, I want to opt out? Stuff like this. So it's at the core. And that's actually why the AI ethics is at the center of that framework.
Yeah. Yannick adds a very interesting comment, also training people not to use GDPR information in prompts.
Yeah, that's a good advice, definitely. In fact, just to take a step back, those LLMs, they continuously want to learn as well. And they have, depending on what kind of LLM you're using, they have varying degrees of actually using the outcome of the chat that you had as training data to feed back into the system. So indeed, if you would feed it like secret information about your company, then there is a chance that that will end up in the training data and somehow be part of an outcome somewhere else. So be mindful of that for sure. Yeah.
I would also say that's part of the maturity of these products, these Gen AI products that are being created. Because if we go back in time when cloud was coming up, there were all these regulations that you could not store stuff in the cloud, and because it's not on premise, and you don't have any control of it. But nowadays you can see that basically regardless if you're a government, if you're a financial business or a medical business, everything is stored in the cloud. So I think in time, with the right regulations, these generative AI tools will also get those kind of, guardrails to make sure that whatever you input in it stays somewhat private and safe and not be implemented in a learning. But my assumption is that it follows the same principles. It's part of the maturity of the product, and in time that will change.
Yeah. That could very well be indeed.
Yeah.
So to take it back to the slide, then the key point, and that's why it highlights in beautiful pink on the left, is the product team guidance aspect at the core of how a data science team then should do their work and go through this life cycle. Because at every stage of that life cycle, you can imagine you want to steer that data science team towards the right proof of concept, to an MVP, and to initial scaled version that meets all of the expectations that are aligned with how you do your product management, because in the end it should be integrated in there. So imagine if a data science team has a proof of concept, it works, yay, then that proof of concept was built in a way that is heavily experimental. So in order to do a proper A/B test, you did integrate it into your product, but that needs to be taken out and integrated properly. So that requires continuous alignment between your devs and the data science team, as an example of this continuous product team guidance. All right, so this concludes the part about how to integrate products into, or AI into your products. Of course, it just touches the surface of this big topic, but let's move towards a bit of a panel discussion and, of course, the Q&A. Let's continue that, because I like that it's in between the topics.
One of my biggest questions I still have for you guys is, because the topic itself of this webinar is AI versus product owner, right? Is there any fear that you guys have in how this could affect your business, your job in a negative way?
In a negative way,
Yeah.
I would say, as I said during my initial talk, is that I'm more to the right side of embracing this change, because I truly believe that at least at the stage that we are right now, with the knowledge that we have right now, AI is not going to replace the job of a product manager. Because as I said, if you look at all these different hats, and at the core of the job, I think product management still is a human job. You need to make connection. You need to intuitively look at all the information that is available to you and make the right choices, but also very importantly bring the rest of the environment with you, either by sharing your vision, either by making sure that people are supportive and understanding about what you're doing. And of course you can use Gen AI, as I said, to do it faster, smarter, more effectively, but at the core it still remains a human job.
What about
Right.
you, Luther?
Yeah, this actually reminds me of a nice quote that I heard recently in a podcast by a professor from NYU Stern, Scott Galloway, quite an interesting character. And he speaks a lot about this topic and also how it affects work. And his conclusion was that, in fact, you don't need to be scared of AI taking your job, but rather people who understand AI better than you taking your job. So that actually,
That's funny.
right, it's an interesting insight. So it really is an integral part of your future now. That's just the case. It's here and it's going to continue, like we saw with the expectations on how it will proceed. So the key is then to embrace it, to understand it, and to make it your own, and to really navigate that world in a better way. And for that you need some knowledge, and of course playing with it, experimenting, and just like another tool, try to get really good at it.
Yeah. Now, if you go back to the beginning, the introduction of this webinar, we had this almost rainbow chart, right, with the boxes, and that means that there are a lot of future technologies that are going to be driven by AI. Now, combining that with the quote that you mentioned, that we're going to be outsmarted basically, or it's a little bit of a rat race, right? Survival of the fittest, who's the most capable of understanding AI. If there are people who are interested in digging into learning more about AI, or what would you advise them, and what area should they start with? Because AI is such a broad term, and there are so many fields that are now using AI. Where to start?
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I think the fastest way, and maybe even also like a practical and enjoyable way, would be tomorrow during your lunch break, just watch some YouTube videos. Just type in some prompts that talk about explain AI to me, or what can I do with AI, and there look for sources that you trust and for videos that are popular. And then you will see that there is so much out there that already explains the basics and how to use these things for your industries. Maybe even talk with ChatGPT itself. So, right, like, hey, you're here now. How does that affect my life? Well, but still. Be critical about the response, but I bet that you will be triggered by something that is said. So, and that's the point, right? You want to be triggered in your mind about how these things work, and just process it in that way, and just live with it every day to figure out how it can be useful. And then, of course, I mean, I would shoot myself in the foot if I wouldn't say that we as Xebia also have trainings to help you out, right? But more on that later.
Yeah. I was triggered by what you said. I think it's funny, a little bit embarrassing to admit.
Nice.
I have ChatGPT on my mobile, and it has a functionality that you can actually talk with your voice with ChatGPT in a like almost real life conversation style.
Sure.
So while I'm driving, I'll put ChatGPT on, and we have a conversation about different topics. and one of the topics that I talk to is, once in a while I ask, what are the new developments that you can share with me about Gen AI and your capabilities? And it gives me a good summary of the newest additions based on the new releases that they do and whatnot. So that is actually quite insightful, and so that's how I stay up to date with this. One way how I stay up to date. Of course, the best way is just start experimenting. There are many great sources that you can try. Just help me out, Rutger. Is it Hug Face or Hugging Face? What? That's a great source of inspiration.
Yes, it's Hugging Face.
Yes, yeah.
Huggingface.com or co or whatever, but you'll find it if you Google it, and that is a really great resource indeed. Yeah. Yes, you can find all kinds of stuff there, access to all kinds of models that are out there. Yeah. LLMs, but also like image to or text to image or image to text or whatever kinds of unimodal, multimodal Gen AI. So that's really interesting. Also leaderboards on the progress, what kind of models have been released so far, if you're into that. Tips and tricks, industry news, all that kind of stuff. So that Hugging Face is a very good resource. Yeah.
It's actually a very genius thing to do, right? It creates your own personalized podcast.
Yeah.
Indeed, yes. So you're going to be obsolete soon, son.
No.
So let's not go there. Speaking of my personal fears. So coming back to the topic and obsolescence, are product managers and product owners, are they still going to be needed in the future if AI is going to ramp up?
Well, yeah, I think yes, because it is ultimately a tool, and it can be a shiny, super powerful tool, but in the end, it needs to be used, and that user would be the product manager, in my opinion, on integrating it properly and making your product where, like what Gino was saying, the ultimate goal is to create value, right? And then to use it in the right way to create that value, and that is the product manager.
So you don't think we're going to be obsolete anytime soon?
No, but of course, no guarantees for the really long future, because who knows?
Fair enough. What about you? Do you think there's ever going to be a point in the nearby future, in our generation even, that our job is going to be obsolete?
I think this is how they say it, a topic that is being continuously discussed, and for now, all the information that I hear, and also my own opinion, no, we're not going to be obsolete. but we can use it to again just be smarter, faster, and more effective. Because there is some in a lot of work that we do, there is some human component, creativity, intuition, which for now is not replaced by AI. I don't know how it will look like in 10 years.
Fair enough. We don't have crystal balls. Maybe we can ask ChatGPT how he predicts the future. Now, you mentioned the shiny part, right? This is AI is still shiny, it's still new.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about like the .com bubble version of AI? Like we have a massive wild growth in AI kind of companies and AI kind of tools, generative AI, everything is AI currently. Is there going to be any point in the nearby future where the whole thing collapses and we're left with basically the biggest, strongest ones?
Yeah. A really interesting question, and I must admit in the beginning I was also a little bit skeptical of the name AI because it assumes like intelligence. So how do you define this, right? What do we actually mean? That's why I really like thinking about that onion with the machine learning and neural networks and the transformers. That is just more like a down-to-earth way to look at this technology. And if you may remember the dates on those circles, they date back to the 40s, right? 1940s. So this topic has been in development for nearly 90 years, right? This is not a new thing that suddenly popped up. It is something that has been stacked on top of research, on top of research, on top of research, and that foundation is really very strong. And only since ChatGPT launched that uses then that latest circle of the technological leap that they made by making the neural networks behind it operate in a revolutionary way. It is still the foundation that it builds upon. And I really do not think that from a technical side we're going to experience that kind of bust. But on the other side, you do have a very frothy market that is investing a lot in. As soon as you mention AI on your website, you're going to raise more capital than if you hadn't. And that side of things, I do think that there will be a bit of a correction in the future, but that's just like with any new buzzy thing. So sure, on the short term, I would say it's going to be fine. Medium term, there might be a bit of a correction financially. Longer term, it's just a straight way up.
Any other thoughts?
No, I fully agree. I think it's part of the evolution of these new technologies, and it's great that there are so many initiatives, and we will find out which of them will have strong roots and bring the next wave of evolution of AI.
Yeah.
Now coming back to the product owner, Scrum. Is Scrum suitable for working with AI?
Wow, that is a good question.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Currently, I'm a product manager at the interim at a large financial organization, and we are using Scrum to develop a very AI-heavy product. And already we see that in our current setup, which we are using Scrum, that the AI part, that training and discovery of how to optimize your LLM, that part does fit a little bit less in the cycle and in the rhythm that Scrum is creating. That's based on experience, and how we are dealing with it is that the product development part of our work we actually run with Scrum, which has been proven to work actually perfectly. That helps us to be predictable. That helps us to show some sort of flow and create value. But because of the unknown and uncertainty that developing and training these models have. We needed to initiate a different cycle, a different speed, and that specific part we see that Scrum is working less effectively than than the other part that I was mentioning.
Yeah.
I don't know how your experience is, but this
Yeah.
is my experience currently at the team that I'm managing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if I wanted to just add that is actually at the core of why I showed those two circles next to each other and a product manager in the middle, because they are machines that operate at a different speed. And indeed, you could use Scrum, but you could also do it differently for the product management part. But that still has like a cycle that is much faster than the data science side of things. And the experimentation step, that third one in that wheel, is something that by definition means that it is uncertain how long it will take, when do you have which results, etc., and when you get them, is it good enough or not, or does it need to go again back into the data stuff, for instance. So you also have a way to go back into the flow, and so it is very unpredictable, and therefore it needs to be dealt in a way that if you have to integrate it into your product, or if that AI is your product, then you indeed Scrum would not work for that.
You mentioned, thank you, by the way, Rutger. You mentioned development. Development still is a very broad term. Could you give examples what kind of development you use it for, where it is actually useful, and where you would consider it to be less useful?
By it, you mean what?
AI tools, like any type of AI tools that you have been applying.
So in our case, basically we are using banks data and using LLMs and AI is to understand the data, to classify the data, to clean up the data, as Rutger was mentioning, all with the purpose of making this data accessible in a way that top leadership from these banks can automate some part of decision making, but also start using this data to steer the organization towards the strategic goals that we have. Of course, I work for a financial organization, so I cannot give a lot of details there, but it's all about generating insights and using those insights to steer the organization towards the vision that they have.
All right. It's interesting that you mentioned like the higher management that they're using this, Rutger. The general tool, or not the general tool, but the general public en masse at large, are our AI-powered products not too complicated for like the larger portion of the users? Like,
Right.
It sort of makes sense for us nerds right here, but for the larger mass.
Yeah, so back to the core of product management, it's about creating value, right? And that means that you want your product to be easily usable by your customers. And some customers might really be very tech savvy, but others not. And maybe you have a mix, which is even more complicated. And so, yes, you need to be fully aware of how the experience will be inside your app, your website, your service, or whatever is powered by AI. But in the end, it should deliver value. And probably the way you will use AI is to support some underlying elements of your service or your app or your product that that influences the experience, but in an automatic way, so that the user does not really need to know even that it is powered by AI, but it's just a better product because it does. But then, it's not more complicated or anything like that. So that's where that integration with the product team is super important, that the product team is still focused on the value, like before, with optimizing the experience. It's just underlying. It's fed by the power of AI, and therefore it becomes a better product because it's more valuable insights, or a better service, or it maybe even adapts the UI based on what it thinks that you want, and it does that really well because it has a good data pool for this. So it should all be simpler and in the name of value.
I think value in that sense is an interesting topic as well, because do you guys ever experience AI fatigue? Like if you read an article and you know it's written by AI, for instance, that you feel less attracted to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yes.
For sure.
Definitely.
Yes.
So you need to be very mindful of to what degree do we communicate to our users that this has been created by AI. Because the other day, like last week, there was a little bit of rioting, and rioting is a big word, but this AI tool has analyzed popular Dutch singers' voices, and now it starts to cram out like songs as if it were them. And of course, that's going to go in the direction that we do not want to go. But just looking at my personal preference, if I know that there's a song for instance, the Foo Fighters, I like Foo Fighters, that has been written and generated by AI and published as if it would be Food Fighters. Foo Fighters.
Throwing a banana.
Exactly. If it would be published under their name, and I would find out that it would be generated by AI, I would immediately be less attracted to it.
No, of course. Yeah, in fact, I just realized something that some books have been published lately by some people that I am really interested about. Like, for instance, that Galloway guy, or Kara Swisher, also has published a really nice book. And they mentioned that as soon as they published their book through Amazon, that AI generated workbooks for their book were created and sold, right? So in fact, it is almost like using your IP and then, or misusing it, and generating a workbook companion to a book that never had this in the first place. And so they're capitalizing on this. So for sure, there are a lot of risks involved with using generative AI as part of your product, and fatigue could be one of those, but also, like I said, maybe even more scam type things. But I'd like to stress that we're talking really specifically about generative AI in this case. And when I talk about AI, I talk about everything related to AI, which, like we know with the onion, is basically then machine learning and some form of this. And when you talk about those underlying things like fraud detection, or optimizing the flow in an app, or like business processes, that is not generative AI. That is more machine learning, to call it more precise. And that is removed from the end user experience. So therefore there is no fatigue. It is just integrated to make a better solution.
I'm curious to see how that's going to work out in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking at the chat, I don't think there are any open questions left. So you've been doing a good job in answering those throughout.
Great.
Well, then I think it's good to just mention that as you've heard us talk about this topic, and we've mentioned a couple times, the topic is quite big. So the goal for us is to make you aware that you, as a product manager, it would be a good idea to expand your toolkit with the power of AI. And that means that in your learning journey, wherever you are on this journey with standardized trainings or specialized ones, look for those that also incorporate AI into them. And of course, like I alluded to in the beginning, as Xebia, we also offer some trainings. Gino offers one that focuses on what he spoke about, which is really to enhance your performance as a product owner in your work, so your professional side.
Exactly.
Right?
This would be a certified Scrum product owner training. So you will be actually certified as a product owner while you're learning about how to use generative AI as your job as a product owner to be smarter, faster, and more effective. The second part, which as a puzzle would fit.
Yes, exactly. So the other side of this puzzle would be how to then actually build products that have AI as a support in it. So to leverage AI to build products. And for that, I have a training as well. And it would be lovely to have you there and learn really about how to collaborate with those data science teams to make that as effective as possible.
Awesome. Gentlemen, I think we're going to wrap up today's webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to be doing more of these style of webinars with different kinds of topics in the future. So keep an eye out on the Xebia website as well as the LinkedIn pages. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insights. I know I learned a ton.
Thank you so much.
That's nice. Thank you. What's it like?
And thank you guys for being here and joining us today.